Great. Well, it is Monday, and it's February 6th at 6:15. This is the Laurel Ethics Commission, and we're holding a meeting by Zoom. Could we please have a roll call?
Okay, Commissioner Hester?
Present.
Commissioner Bardwell?
Present.
Commissioner Skaggs?
Present.
Okay.
Great. So we have a quorum. Thank you. I call our meeting to order with the quorum. First item on the agenda is the approval of the draft agenda that we have before us. You all have it. It was sent around by our staff. It's basically a discussion of the Ethics Ordinance revisions and then an opportunity for some other business. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as it is?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Excellent. Next item is approval of the minutes from their September 21 meeting from 2022 from last fall. This again was sent out in the invitation to everyone. Are there any requests by anybody for any edits, additions, deletions, illustrations, whatever you might like for it? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as they stand?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, pass the minutes. Now we get on to the meat of the meeting, which is, this was sent around. This is the red line version of the new Ethics Ordinance as required by the state of Maryland. And as everyone recalls, we asked our attorney and our vice chair to, or I guess it was Ms. Drake, I think it was, to take a look at this and to do a red line to bring it up to the standards that make it City of Laurel specific, as opposed to the more generic state version that we were given as the model on which we had to build our new revised ordinance. Much of it is the same, or very, very close to what we had before. So it's nothing too earth-shattering. But there's a few different words in here and some small things. And so what I'd like to do is to take this opportunity, if you're all ready, if you all have a copy of this handy, just to kind of leaf through it page by page. There are 19 pages. I don't know that we all have edits to propose on all of them, but I know I have a couple of edits as we go through. And if anyone else would like to raise any particular requests for revisions or edits, let's just go ahead and do it as page by page. Is that okay with everybody? Does anybody have a better approach? Hearing none, let's go ahead and start with page 1. I guess 1 of 20. I guess there are 20 pages rather than 19. All right, so is there anything on page 1 that anyone would like to mention as something they might like to see have a revision or an edit, an addition, a deletion, anything at all? I didn't have any myself. I'll go quickly. So if anybody wants to kind of back up or whatever, say, well, you went too fast. That's fine. We can just go back anytime you want to a page that we may have gone through too quickly for someone. But anyway, so page 1, nothing. Page 2, there are some red lines here on page 2. They all looked fine to me. Does anyone have any requests or thoughts or anything they might like to do with anything on page 2? Either adjust any of these red lines or add anything or delete anything anywhere on the page? Hearing none, let's go to page 3. There are some red lines in the middle of this page. They looked fine to me. Does anybody have anything that they would like to do with this page, with these red lines or any other lines on page 3? Hearing none, let's go to page 4. I did have one thing on this one. So on page 4, on item near the bottom, about an inch or so up in the text on the bottom, in item K1. Any person may file a complaint with the commission alleging a violation of any of the provisions of this article. That's good, but I wanted to suggest perhaps adding in a line that we have in our current one, or similar to what we have in our current one, and the new sentence would read something to the effect, the commission itself may file a complaint, comma, sui sponte. What that basically means is that we don't have to have someone outside the commission come to us and say there's a problem. The commission itself, for whatever reason any commissioner may want to use, any commissioner may ask the commission itself to raise a complaint, and that's what sui sponte means, on its own authority. That's Latin talk, lawyer speak. Right, attorney?
Okay, what page is that again?
Yes, it is.
Page 4,
you.
about an inch up from the bottom, about an inch up into the text. It's item K1. Any person may file a complaint. Do we all see where that is? And what I suggest is in that header there for K1, any person may file a complaint, add a sentence at the end of that first sentence. The commission itself may also file a complaint, comma, sui sponte. Anybody object? Anybody think that's a bad idea, a good idea?
I
Anybody?
think it's a good idea.
Okay.
I'm
So
fine with
it just gives us the option that we've had all along, but it enshrines it in this new ordinance. That's all. Okay, let's move on to page 5. There are a couple of very minor red lines there. Any comments, discussion on anything on page 5? Hearing none, let's go to page 6. No red lines on page 6. Does anybody would like to suggest any? Hearing none, let's go to page 7. Many red lines here, and I have a couple of suggestions as well. So if you don't mind, maybe I could just start with a couple of my suggestions, and I would appreciate anybody else offering any that they may also have, and then we can have a discussion. The first set of red lines, it's in item or in subsection C, post-employment limitations and restrictions. C2, a former elected official may not assist or represent. What I would suggest is, instead of saying just a former elected official, I would say a former elected or appointed official or employee. So that would cover everybody in the city and not just the elected officials in terms of representing things.
Yeah, and I think that's consistent with C1.
Right.
Except I would capitalize A.
Okay. You know, I had a thought that everywhere throughout this, if we could capitalize a few of the things like Ethics Commission or other terms like that, that probably would do better to be capitalized, because we're talking about something very specific and not just a generic commission. And then a little further down on this, in item E2.
Chair Hester, before you proceed.
Sure.
Would we be making a change to C1 to be consistent with the changes proposed for C2?
Yes, let's do that also. A former official. Well, no, it says official, it doesn't say elected. So we can insert the words elected or appointed official.
Correct.
Right. Yes, let's do that. Mr. Whitley, do you have that?
Yes, I do.
Good. Okay. Moving down, that we were in C. Now let's move down to E. I had a suggestion there, or at least something that I would like to discuss. Whether we do it or not is, of course, up to the others as well. C2. We're talking about use of prestige of office to influence, except as part of the official duties of the official or employee, or as usual and customary constituent service without additional compensation. I'm a little concerned about this being an awfully big loophole. Because, I mean, it doesn't even define customary constituent service. One could almost say anything is a constituent service in terms of helping out a constituent, whether or not it's appropriate or not, and say, well, you know, I have a get out of jail free card here because it says so long as I called helping a constituent, I'm fine and I can do it according to this. So my suggestion would be either to remove this entire subsection 2, or at least remove the phrase "or as usual and customary constituent service without additional compensation." To tighten that up a little bit, to make it not quite the barn door through which one could drive almost anything.
Okay, can you repeat? I thought you were on C2. Where are you?
No, E is an Edward.
Thank
you.
you.
Edward 2. E is an Edward, use of prestige of office is what Edward 2 or E says.
Thank you.
And then 2 under that is to influence, except as part of the official duties, and that's fine, official duties, if you're supposed to be doing this as your job, that's good. But then it says, or as a usual and customary constituent servants without additional compensation. So whether you're compensated or not, it's basically giving you anything I want to do and call a constituent service, I can do. That's the way it comes across to me as a citizen. Does anybody object to either removing this in its entirety, or at least that one phrase, or as a usual and customary constituent service?
I think we do need to keep something that references influencing.
Okay.
So maybe if we can modify that portion.
Just delete that phrase rather than the entire subsection 2 there?
That's my preference, to keep some level of influence in there.
I'm happy with that, so long as we're going to kind of tighten that up a little bit so that they can't just point to that and say I can do anything.
So we can always refer to council. I don't know will it still get our point across if that verbiage is removed?
I think it does the job.
Great.
That's all I had on that page. Does anybody, one other thing, I'm sorry. Backing up to subsection C as in Charlie. In Charlie C2, where we talked, changing the words to be appointed official or elected official or employee, a little bit later in that, or a little bit further on in that sentence, it says 1 calendar year. I'm not entirely comfortable with somebody being able to come back within 365 days and start representing someone to the city on something they worked on. I would be happier with 3 calendar years. I might go for 2, but I think 1 is kind of a relatively short period of time, at least in the glacial terms that governments take to move.
Well, I just speaking from experience at my current employer, we do have that 12-month rule, but this is for employees and appointed commissioners. So I don't know if 12 months is unusual.
And elected officials too, it's not just appointed.
Right, that's why I was pointing out the difference. So I don't know if 3 years is too harsh, or is that consistent with what other?
In the federal government, it's 2 years, but I don't know if, what other people have or are comfortable with. The point of this is to slow down the revolving door.
Right. I think 3 years is fine.
I'm not a commissioner, but as counsel, I think that 3 years may be a bit much. I know at county level and other localities, I think it's typically 12 months. But again, we can be on the cutting edge if that's the desire of the commission.
Well, I'd be willing to compromise at 2 years if people are comfortable at 2 years. Just one just seems awfully quick.
I could live with 2 years. I think 3 is extreme.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Whitley, change that to 2 years, please. I mean, that still doesn't, stop somebody from earning a living later on, but it stops them from earning a living on the backs of the citizens of Laurel, where they have an insider advantage to some degree after they leave the government. Is there anything else on that page anybody would like to bring up? No, thank you very much. Page 8 of 20. There's some red lines here, and there are a couple of things I wanted to suggest. Let me start out with just mentioning the things I wanted to suggest and then open it up if anybody wants to suggest anything more, or maybe tell me they don't like what I'm suggesting or whatever. I mean, I'm wide open. But the things that I had in mind were in section 4, Roman numeral 2. It's kind of like right in the middle of the page. Roman numeral 2, it says, notwithstanding paragraph 3 of this subsection, an official or employee may accept the following. And it says A, meals and beverages consumed in the presence of the donor or sponsoring entity. And what I wanted to do with that is to tighten that up a little bit, to add a phrase at the end. So it would read, in the presence of the donor or sponsoring entity at an open and widely attended event. So if my good buddy, who's the, some kind of a, big property owner or something, a big business owner or something, decides to take me out to a real fancy dinner that costs hundreds of dollars, and but I'm eating that $200 filet mignon dinner with wine and everything, right in front of those guys. That's okay. But I'm, I don't want to make it sound like that's okay. I want to make sure that people realize that, be like at a widely attended event, like if you go to a reception where everybody's having the same thing, and there's 100 people there or 200 people there, and you're just participating along with everybody else in that open event, I think that's fine. But I just don't want it to be sort of a sweetheart thing that you've got some kind of a sweetheart deal with some rich person who's trying to influence you.
Yeah, I agree with that change.
Okay.
Because A can be looked as an intimate setting, just to, like you're saying, 2 people, and then
just you and the rich guy.
Yeah.
who's going to get you to do something for him. Okay, Mr. Skaggs, is that okay for you?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Good. Okay, and then under that subsection, Roman numeral 2, that was A we just discussed. If you move down to D as in dog, it says there, for discussion amongst the commission, in a red line. And what I might suggest there is talking about reasonable expenses for food, travel, lodging, and scheduled entertainment of the official or employee at a meeting, which is given in return for the participation of the official or employee in a panel or speaking engagement at the meeting. And what I would suggest is including a phrase at the end, and that has been approved in writing in advance by the city administrator or the mayor. Because otherwise somebody could come to me some rich person say, hey, I want to invite you on a trip to Hawaii, all expenses paid, and we're going to put you up in the suite or whatever here, and wine and dine you, and say that has to do with my participating for 5 minutes in some conference they're holding. So I would just want to be sure that somebody like the city administrator or mayor was approving in writing before accepting something like that.
So is this the equivalent of an honorarium?
Well, it's the equivalent of a non-monetary honorarium. It's they're talking about it could be an honorarium, reasonable expenses for food, travel, lodging, and entertainment. So somebody's going to,
but it's in return.
somebody's going to take me out for entertainment to some, bar or something.
But it says
to a Beyonce concert.
It also says in return for the participation of the official employee in a panel or speaking engagement.
Right.
So I'm looking at that
there's
as
all
an
kinds
honorarium.
Well, yeah, but there's all kinds. Well, call it whatever you like.
No, I'm not. I'm not debating with you. I'm just saying it. To me, it looks like an honorarium. Right. And usually, to specify the approval, I have no problem with that. But that's usually customary for employees. I don't know from the official standpoint.
Well, for example, I think I could call myself an expert in getting into an Ivy League school, because that's something that I do. I interview people to do that. So if somebody wanted to come to me and say, hey, I want to give you an honorarium to come and talk about that, I wouldn't consider that part of my relationship with the city, because that's something completely different. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want you to come and speak on ethics at a meeting that we're going to hold, and that meeting is going to be, in Cancun, and we're going to get you the presidential suite to stay in, and we're going to wine and dine you for a week, and all you have to do is show up at a panel, and we're going to pay for everything. That's not okay with me. I just want to be sure that that this is used only for legitimate things. Like if somebody wanted to have me come to Annapolis or Baltimore or something, that's fine. To come and participate in a panel, and basically they're just paying my gas to drive my car there and back. That's okay. But as soon as you start getting into things that could be easily construed to be far more than just that, I think that gets into an ethics area of, should people be allowed to accept fancy things, fancy trips, fancy lodging, fancy dinners, fancy everything. And whether they're paid honoraria or just paid in goods and services. A trip itself is a thing of value, especially if it's to a fancy place.
I agree. I was just trying to put it in perspective, and to say, if I understood you correctly, adding additional language that addresses with prior approval.
With prior written approval by either the city administrator or the mayor.
Okay.
And I would expect that if the mayor is going somewhere, the mayor would have to have the city administrator approve it in writing, and vice versa. So that's why I'm suggesting either one of those, and also so the workload doesn't get dumped on just one or the other.
Sure.
And I would expect office heads and committee chairs and that sort of thing would be prudent in, recommending something to go up to that level to be approved, rather than just sort of rubber stamping anything anybody handed them. Anybody disagree with that additional clause at the end? Hearing none. Anything else on that page? Hearing none, let's go to page 9. There's one red line there. Anybody want to make any additions or deletions or whatever? Before we move on, I just saw something here, another note that I'd written over here. Could we just back up to page 7? Well, we'll move on to page 10 in a minute, but if we just back up to page 7. Sorry for backing us up like this, but anyway, on page 7, this is the one where we're talking about the customary constituent services. And then I was wondering, do we want to include something here, keeping in mind this whole thing with certain people, certain elected officials accepting events from various people and such. Do we want to include some language in here, or maybe we want to include it later on, but something to the effect that notwithstanding, accepting things, elected and appointed officials may not use their position, title, City of Laurel name or seal or city property or other resources to solicit or accept service or events from for-profit or not-for-profit entities seeking to hold such events in the city. Something along those lines. And also maybe an additional sentence. Elected and appointed officials may not use their position, title, City of Laurel name or seal, city property or resources to support candidates for elective office or to support any unsettled or partisan political matter. These are some of the things that we were seeing in those events where there appeared to be support for candidates who are running for office and for unsettled political issues or partisan political issues. So to insert, right after maybe number 4, maybe in place of number 4, something to these effects. I can read these again if you like.
Go ahead, please.
All right. Notwithstanding the above, elected and appointed officials may not use their position, title, the City of Laurel name or seal.
Well, I don't write that fast. No.
Okay.
Well, actually, if you have it written down, can you just email it to me?
Yeah, I can email this to you.
All right.
And also,
it does have to be these exact words. I'm just trying to get this thought through in some way that's legal and is going to make it clear that these kinds of potential uses of one's prestige of office or position are not okay.
I was actually going to take a look at the opinion letter we did for the mayor and probably pull some of that language from there as well.
Why don't you just use that language instead of the language that I'm talking about here? So if you could select appropriate language from that letter and insert it in the appropriate place with the appropriate numbering in this general area of the new ordinance, I think that would be wonderful. I want it to be smooth and not rough. I want it to be in proper legalese and such.
Okay.
But if I might ask Ms. Bardwell and Mr. Skaggs if you agree with the general thought behind this and to have this inserted at this general area by Mr. Whitley.
well,
Ms. Bardwell, do you agree with the general thought?
yes, I agree that this would be the appropriate time to insert such language. And based on what you said at the end, before you mentioned, appropriate space, location, and number, I was going to suggest if we say notwithstanding the above, it would be the last item in that section, but I'm sure Mr. Whitley can handle that.
No, he's an
on
expert at this, so
yes.
we'll put our trust and faith in Mr. Whitley doing this the right way.
Yeah, and I do think it's appropriate time to address it now.
Mm-hmm. And in a way that'll make it effective and clear, so that people can't sort of say, "Well, I didn't know."
Right, and as long and ensuring that it's in agreement with what the mayor has said in the
right
too.
Exactly. So that's great to draw it from that piece with the mayor. Mr. Skaggs, does this sound reasonable?
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Great. Okay, sorry for backing us up like that, but if any of you want to back us up at any time, that's fine. Just let me know. Page 10. Just picking up where we had left off before I back this up. There are a couple of red lines on here. I don't have any issues. Does anybody have any issues or additions or anything you want to adjust, add, delete? Hearing none, page 11, there are a number of red lines on this. I don't have any issues with them. I don't know, is it really necessary to, I mean, I'm not an expert on this part, but talking about the University of Maryland medical system, is that something we need to include in City of Laurel or not?
I think we need to include it. That was really the basis for changing the entire ordinance. There was a scandal at the University of Maryland Medical Center. They just want to make sure it's clear that they're covered.
All right, I didn't know about the scandal, so this is good. It doesn't hurt anything to include it. I just didn't know if it was necessary.
And what, you know, my page seems to be one off or something. So when you're speaking of the page number, can you continue to say what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, very close to the top, it says E is an Edward public record. That's the third line down from the top. The top of the page starts with the board may not include a candidate's name on the ballot. And then just below that, it says public record.
Okay.
Have you found that page?
E public record.
E is an Edward public record.
Yes.
It's section 2.56 financial disclosure. And then you go to E public records.
Public records. Okay. Thank you.
And then you move down to E6 down near the bottom.
E6.
Little Roman I.
Okay, so that's page 12 for me. Okay.
Okay, so just add one to every time I say a number.
Yeah, I'll just go down one. Yeah, so is the University of Maryland Medical System, is that what is the
that was my question.
Laurel Hospital?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's broader than that, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so anything more on page 11/12? Okay, turn the page. So now we're on page 12/13. It says if, at the very top, the first words are if any interest was transferred. There's no red lines on this page. Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up? All right, turn the page. At the very top, it's D for David. It starts with respect to any interest acquired. That's the first line. It says that. I did have one point on this that I wanted to suggest, and this is a suggestion, open for discussion. The first main section on that is number 4 in parentheses, gifts. And for gifts, little Roman numeral I, we're talking about $20 per gift, and that's good. That's everything we've always had. But then it says, or a series of gifts totaling $100. I would rather have it read, or a series of gifts totaling $20 rather than 100. Either one gift for 20 or a series of gifts totaling 20. I mean, I frankly don't see why anybody should accept any gift whatsoever at any time. But it's, I realize sometimes there's just no way you can, you know, walk around and then just find out that somebody stuffed something, you know, in your suit pocket or something, you know, as you're walking out and say, where did that come from? Or you just can't, you know, for whatever, you know, personal reason, you can't turn it down. But it really has to be minimal, like it's talking about what a gift can include and what can it be. But just in general, hopefully nobody accepts anything from anybody. That's the best policy, in my mind. Anybody else want to discuss or argue or propose?
No, I'm just trying to think about the logic behind the $100.
Well, 5 gifts of $20.
Right. I look, I'm a CPA. CPAs know how to add. I'm just trying to figure out where did this originate from to get the historical basis for it being included in the first place.
Well, I think there was an earlier one that was talking about a $500 gift limit, which was just,
oh goodness.
to me, that was outrageous. You know, that is definitely in bribe territory. But even $100, I mean, there's an appearance there, especially given, not everybody in the city of Laurel is wealthy, and $100 can be a lot of money to some of our citizens, especially if it's $100 above and beyond just, what you get for what you need to pay your rent or to buy some food to eat that night, or for your kids to be warm. I mean, that's $100 to a wealthy person, it's nothing, but to many citizens of Laurel, that's a significant sum. And so we should not be saying it's okay for any city official of any kind or employee to accept $100, in my mind. That's why I prefer to have it be zero, but I know we can't have it zero. But so I'm willing to compromise the 20, either 20 all at once or 20 in a series, adding up to 20. You get 20 pencils. It's hard to call that trying to influence somebody. At least I don't think so. But anyway, so if we can make that 20, I don't hear any objections.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on that page? There's some other red lines, but no, nothing on that page. The next page starts at the top with C for Charlie. The terms of payment of the liability and the extent is the first line. There are a lot of red lines on here. I didn't have any issues with any of it. Does anybody else have any issues? Requests for edits or adjustments, additions, deletions, anything at all? Hearing none, let's go to the next page. Starts with little Roman numeral 2, a business entity described. So there's some red lines at the top here. I had no issues with it. Does anybody have any other issues? Suggestions, requests, comments? Expletives? Turning the page to 16, there's no red lines on this page. Does anybody want to suggest any? Hearing none, the next page at the top, it starts with little b for Bravo, the name, address, and nature of business or any person. There are no red lines on this page. Does anybody want to suggest any? Turning the page, starts with little e for Edward, names of witnesses, and the fees and expenses paid. Anybody want to suggest anything? There's no red lines. I'm fine with everything on this page. Next page, it starts with section 2-59 enforcement. There are no red lines. Would anybody like to suggest any? And it's pretty close, I think, to what we have already. Is there any real substantive difference here? Or?
No, that's why there are no red lines.
So. Yeah. And because it's, and then the first part of that, we're not actually fining anybody an actual dollar amount, but we can issue an order of compliance, cease and desist, issue a reprimand, or recommend the appropriate authority, such as the mayor. Well, I'm not sure what the mayor could do if we wanted to, for example, say someone who's an elected official is someone that we have a problem with, if the mayor has any real authority over another elected official. Is that accurate, Mr. Whitley?
That's correct.
Yeah. So it'd be nice to be able to do something, but we can't according to this, other than wag our finger and maybe do it publicly. There's no reason we can't do things like issue a public reprimand, right?
We can do that.
Or we could issue a private one if it's something we think is very minor and doesn't rise to a level needing to be made public, if it's just so minor, and if it's corrected immediately.
On the facts.
Gives us some flexibility. All right, but it does allow us to go to the circuit court, I guess, and that's through the city attorney, or is that through you, or how does that work if we ever needed to do that? For section 2-59, subsection B1.
I think it would be fact specific. I think I could foresee some circumstances where I would handle it. I could see some circumstances where the city solicitor would handle it.
Okay. Well, maybe we want to include then, say, upon request of the commission, the city solicitor, comma, or the commission's attorney, or the commission's legal counsel, whatever the right words would be there, may file a petition for injunctive or other relief. Does that make sense, Mr. Whitley?
I'm trying to find exactly where you are before I say yes.
Okay. My page number is 19, although it might be 20, although who knows. At the very top, it says section 2-59 enforcement.
Enforcement, yes, I'm on that page.
All right. And then there's subsection A, 1 and 2. And then there's subsection B, subsection B1. It says, upon request of the commission, the city solicitor may file a petition for injunctive or other relief.
Okay.
Do we want to include, or would it be appropriate to include, when they request the city solicitor or
Ethics counsel
or the ethics counsel as appropriate to file a petition?
Okay.
Give us flexibility, give you flexibility, so that you're not hamstrung. And neither are we.
I can add that language, but I would file it at the request of the city solicitor.
Right.
I'll go ahead and I'll add that language just to make it clear.
Right, right. Anything else on this page? Next to last page. Anything? The very last page, it's just a partial page. It starts as E for Edward 1, a person who is subject to. There are no red lines. I don't have any issues. Does anybody have any issues? Questions, anything?
None for me.
None for me.
So Mr. Skaggs and Ms. Bardwell, are we through the entire document now? Is there anything you would like to add or suggest or revise, or now upon reflection change in any way?
I have no additional edits recommended.
Mr. Skaggs?
No, I have none.
Okay, so, let's see. Mr. Whitley, is there anything you'd like to bring up about this at this time? Before we make a motion to accept the requested edits and ask for you to proceed.
There's nothing I want to bring up other than, I don't know what Commissioner Drake spent a lot of time with me going over this. I just want to make sure, it's clear that you had a significant input in the finished document.
Okay.
That's good to know.
Well, do you want to, Ms. Pulley, is there anything that you would like to ask or suggest or anything?
No, not at this time. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, do we want to make a motion contingent on a final discussion between Mr. Whitley and Ms. Drake, on the final red line version, or is that something that people would want to do, or do you just want to go ahead and make a motion to approve it as discussed?
I think I see Mr. Whitley nodding his head. I was going to say I would like the input for Ms. Drake again, just from Commissioner Drake on the final edits, since two attorneys speaking. They speak the lingo, but I'm comfortable with whatever the majority wants.
Which would you prefer, Mr. Whitley?
In a perfect world, I'd love to go back and speak with Commissioner Drake. I just don't know whether time permitted. Time permits that
If you can get to her within the next day or two, I think maybe we can do that. But if it's going to be an extended period of time, then, you know, if she needs a couple of weeks to review it, I think that's not going to be possible.
Right.
We do need to move forward.
And I was primarily referring to the significant change for that letter, the portion to make sure that we captured, you know, when the city elected officials are participating in community events, that was my only area of concern.
Right.
Well, what I can do is once I make the changes, I can circulate them to the entire board, the entire commission. And then if you wanted to do a vote afterwards, that's fine. Okay, why don't we do that? And could you give us a time frame that you're thinking of to be able to get this to us? Because we do need to move quickly. I would have it to you by close of business Friday, if that's sufficient. For me, that's fine. Administrator Pulley, does that work for you?
That does work for me. Ideally, the goal is, of course, to have the final draft ready before the special work session on the 22nd. So when it's discussed, then we'll be good to go. So that works well. Thank you, Dennis. My pleasure. Right.
Would somebody like to make the motion as discussed? You could just say, I move as discussed.
I move as discussed.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Look forward to seeing it on Friday.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so let's move on to other business. First item here is sponsored events discussion. I guess Administrator Pulley, did you want to introduce this?
Sure, I don't have the document in front of me at this moment. I just have the code section, but probably maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, the mayor had asked Chairman Hester for an opinion based on sponsored events, because there were a couple of events that were in question by a couple of council members on if they should or shouldn't be doing it. So Mr. Hester did provide a response back to the mayor, I believe, and then he just wanted to get more input regarding it. Of course, if some things should be put into the code, and then also to have a special work session just to remind not just the council, but department heads as well, just what they can and can't do from an ethical standpoint.
Okay, and there was basically a comeback on that. I think basically agreeing with what we were talking about, as this was the direction I think the mayor wanted to move. I'm not sure if we need to take a specific action right now. Is there, Ms. Pulley, is there something that we need to take action on specifically right now, other than to simply accept what the mayor has already provided?
No, just what the mayor's provided, and then I don't know when you do the special work session, if this was something you wanted to hone in, how they should or should not be doing things, kind of like we were just talking about with the code and what's acceptable and what's not. I do believe there is probably a little confusion among a couple on what they can and can't do. Sometimes people would think they could just, I would hate to say this, like do whatever they want because they're elected. So.
I'm elected, so I can do whatever I want. Yeah.
Right, and then also I guess this is something maybe for you guys to discuss as a committee or commission. If it continues to be violations regarding various council members, if they're doing things, sponsored events or whatever, that's totally against the code. Should you start finding them?
Right. Okay, well, maybe the best thing to do is we have this second item on the other business, briefing to the mayor and city council on February 22nd. For those of you who aren't aware, we've been invited by the mayor to come and give a briefing as the Ethics Commission to the mayor and city council. And this is definitely, I think, a prime opportunity for us to bring this up and discuss this issue. My thought was we could start out with maybe a 5-minute quick summary of the Ethics Ordinance, focusing on the new draft version as to what's in process and is going to become hopefully very soon the final version. And then also taking a few minutes to talk about sponsored events and how they're an issue and a problem for us, and how if they continue, we would likely need to start taking very specific actions to make them stop. So I guess would anybody like to come with me to this meeting on the 22nd? Vice Chair Bardwell or Commissioner Skaggs, would you like to come? This is going to be an in-person thing where we need to be at City Hall in the City Council room at this work session on the February 22nd at 6 p.m.
I'm just looking to see what day of the week I believe that I'm free.
Okay.
Let's see. You said the
22nd.
22nd. When that's a Wednesday. Okay. Yes, I should be able to attend.
That'd be great. I'd like it to be more than just me, because otherwise they'll just think, oh, that's just Jim. So if we could have at least 2 people, and Mr. Skaggs, you're invited, and all the other commissioners are invited to come and sit in as well, and to be there to show support for what we're saying and answer any specific questions that may be directed at them, but maybe Vice Chair Bardwell or I, may not be able to answer, or may think that they might be able to answer better. So I don't think there'd be any problem with having as many of the commissioners there as possible.
Right. Commissioner Drake may want to attend if she's available.
That'd be wonderful. It'd be wonderful if anybody, Commissioner Crook, Commissioner Skaggs, Commissioner Dom. So is Commissioner Dom still doing okay, or is he still being a little bit ill these days?
I have not heard anything. I did leave a message for him today just to check in with us about what's going on with him.
Right. Okay. Well, I wish him to, if he's still ill, I wish him to get better very soon and come back and join us in a full-time capacity again, or as full-time as the commission is.
Yes, we all do.
Right. So
and Mr. Whitley, I hope he gets well too as a voice.
Actually, I feel a lot better than I sound. I don't know what happened to my voice today.
We'll get some hot tea and put some honey in it.
Okay.
That's what my mom always used to do for me.
As soon as we're done.
All right. Is there, let's see, the next item on the agenda is general public hearing. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak? Seeing no one here, that moves us to the end of the meeting, unless anybody would like to raise any additional issues of any kind.
Just so I'm clear, when I speak to the mayor in the morning, I'm just going to inform him for the agenda for the special work session. It'll be discussion of the proposed ethics ordinance changes with the question, the Q&A regarding that, and then sponsored events, the presentation discussion with a Q&A with that as well.
Right, and anything anybody wishes to raise to us, we're wide open and all ears.
Sounds good.
This is their meeting, not ours.
I like that. Well, thanks. I really appreciate everyone's time and effort on everything, the code update, and then for having a special work session coming to it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. My apologies again for being tardy.
Well, that's all right.
Thanks.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Anybody?
I move we adjourn.
Any second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you,
Have a
everybody.
good evening, everyone.
Everyone
Good
take
night,
care.
everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.